Your kind doesn't deserve real money, boy. This fake garbage gets burned. Alistair Finch's polished silver lighter, emblazoned with a discreet sterling lion crest, sparked to life, its tiny flame dancing in the opulent air of the grand Sterling Bank and Trust lobby. He held it, not to a cigarette, but to a crisp, official-looking business check, poised over the magnificent, polished marble floor. The check, a document for a staggering $2.3 million, crumpled instantly into a fiery blossom, devouring itself with an almost eager crackle. Alistair, the epitome of a slick, self-satisfied branch manager, held it high, allowing the assembled onlookers a full view of the destruction, a theatrical display of his perceived authority. He watched, a smug glint in his eyes as the edges curled into black ash, then dropped the still smoldering paper at Julian Vance's feet. Julian, a man in his late 40s, dressed in faded denim and a simple charcoal hoodie, stood motionless. The check, now a miniature inferno, crackled and hissed between his worn white sneakers. The acrid smell of burning paper, a harsh contrast to the bank's usual scent of polished leather and expensive coffee, began to permeate the grand hall. Alistair's Italian leather heel, impeccably shined, descended with deliberate slowness onto the fragile embers. He twisted it, grinding the ashes into the pristine marble, maintaining an unbroken, contemptuous gaze with Julian. A silent challenge hung in the air, a duel of wills that Alistair clearly believed he was winning. "Look at that," Alistair announced, his voice carrying an almost predatory satisfaction to the rapidly growing crowd of bewildered customers and curious staff. Problem solved? 3 customers, phones already in hand, began filming. A young blonde woman, her designer handbag clutched tight, held her phone aloft, live-streaming the entire spectacle, whispering breathless commentary to her online audience. The head security guard, a burly man named Thomas, his hand already resting on his radio, approached cautiously. "Sir, you need to leave," he stated, his voice firm but tinged with unease. "Now." Julian Vance's expression remained as unreadable as ancient stone, a placid calm that was unnerving in the face of such aggressive humiliation. His hand moved slowly, almost imperceptibly, towards the inner pocket of his jacket, paused for a fraction of a second, then dropped. The digital clock on the towering wall above the gilded teller stations flickered. 2:48 p.m. 12 minutes until his board meeting. Had he ever been judged so completely, so utterly dismissed, that someone would literally incinerate his worth in front of him for the world to see? The humiliation, a subtle undercurrent beneath Julian's composure, deepened, a quiet ache that would eventually find its voice. "Everyone, look at this masterpiece," Alistair declared again, reveling in the attention, his arm sweeping dramatically towards the smoldering ashes. "Did you all see how I handled that fake check? Burned it right in front of him. Problem solved." Julian remained a statue of calm as the black fragments, still warm, clung to his sneakers. The air, thick with the smell of charred paper, stirred faintly as thin wisps of smoke curled upwards from the black remnants. "Alistair, maybe we should—" Evelyn Reed, the assistant manager, began hesitantly, her eyes darting nervously between the growing crowd and Julian's unnervingly tranquil face. "Quiet, Evelyn," Alistair snapped, cutting her off dismissively, his eyes, now gleaming with triumphant satisfaction, fixed on Julian. "Sir, what's your real name? And don't give me some fake identity to match that worthless piece of paper I just incinerated for everyone to witness." The blonde woman filming adjusted her phone, zooming in on the ashes, then panning back to Julian's stoic face. Her viewer count climbed steadily, a silent testament to the unfolding drama. 47, 156, 312. Then, with a surge, 478 people watching in real time. Comments flooded her screen, a digital avalanche of shock and awe. "Oh my God, he burned it!" Savage manager. Bank check burn was already trending. Alistair, emboldened by his online fame, kicked at the ash pile with his expensive Italian shoe, scattering the remains further across the pristine marble. You walk into my bank wearing clothes from a discount store with a fake check bigger than most people's annual salaries. Thought you could fool us? He punctuated his rhetorical question by grinding his heel into the remaining fragments, pulverizing them into fine powder. An elderly, elegantly dressed woman in a vintage Chanel suit, perched near the investment desk, applauded softly. "Bravo, Alistair," she called out, her voice clear and resonant enough for all to hear. "That's exactly how you handle their kind. Burn first, ask questions later." Other customers began to cluster around, drawn by the spectacle and the pungent scent of burnt paper. A businessman in a bespoke suit nodded approvingly, murmuring, "I should have done that the moment he walked in." Julian Vance's hand moved again, this time retrieving his identification from a leather wallet. As the corner of his Platinum Imperial card, a sleek black emblem of elite finance, peeked from the rich leather, Alistair, ever vigilant for a perceived misstep, snatched the wallet before Julian could react. He held it triumphantly above his head, a predatory grin spreading across his face. "Well, well, well. Stolen credit cards, too?" Alistair waved the wallet like a trophy, his voice swelling with theatrical flair. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've got ourselves a complete criminal package here. Fake checks, stolen cards, probably a fake ID coming next." The security guard, Thomas, spoke urgently into his radio, his face grim. "Yeah, we definitely need backup. Fraud suspect with destroyed evidence and possible stolen property." It was then, amidst the escalating chaos, that Julian finally spoke, his voice maintaining an unnaturally calm, almost melodic tone that contrasted sharply with the rising tension. "Mr. Finch, I'd like my wallet back, please. When the police arrive, you can explain to them where you really got it." Alistair, momentarily taken aback by Julian's quiet defiance, quickly recovered. He pocketed the wallet with an exaggerated flourish. "Oh, and you can also explain how you managed to forge that check I just had to destroy for evidence preservation," he added with a sneer. A teenager with vibrant purple hair filmed frantically from the ATM line, already uploading to a popular social media platform with the caption, "Bank manager burns fake check. Fire beats fraud. Manager is savage. Grand sterling bank justice served." The digital wall clock advanced, now reading 2:52 p.m. Julian glanced at it, and for the first time a flicker of something, impatience, amusement, crossed his composed facade. It was barely perceptible, a fleeting shadow in the depths of his eyes. "Oh, running late for your next scam?" Alistair taunted, gesturing dramatically at the ash pile, his voice dripping with condescension. "Don't worry, you won't be going anywhere soon. See that pile of ashes on my floor? That's what happens to fraud in Alistair Finch's bank." Julian's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, a quiet, rhythmic vibration. He ignored it, but the sound drew Alistair's attention. "Turn that off," Alistair snapped, his tone sharp. "Your accomplices can wait." The live stream viewer count surged past 650, then rocketed further. Comments exploded across social media. "He literally torched it. Boss move of the century. Ashes to ashes, fraud to fraud." The video was being shared across multiple platforms simultaneously, a wildfire of public opinion. Alistair basked in his viral moment, straightening his silk tie and smoothing his perfectly coiffed hair. "This is exactly why we maintain strict security protocols. People like this individual think they can waltz in here with fake paper and fool hard-working, honest citizens. Evelyn Reed, the assistant manager, shifted uncomfortably behind the counter, her gaze flitting between the scattered ashes and Julian's eerily calm expression. Something about the scene, about Julian's unflappable demeanor, nagged at her professional instincts. The Chanel customer continued nodding approvingly, whispering to her equally well-heeled companion about finally seeing some backbone in customer service. A heavyset businessman near the window muttered loudly, "Should have called the authorities first, but burning it definitely sends the right message to his kind." 3 more customers, drawn by the commotion, joined the growing circle, phones out, recording everything. The Grand Sterling Bank and Trust's usual bustling Tuesday afternoon business had ground to a complete halt, transformed into an impromptu theater. Julian's eyes drifted momentarily to a first-class boarding pass, tucked subtly into his jacket pocket, its sleek design a silent promise of distant travel. Viridia City to Kyoto, departing tomorrow morning. The detail went completely unnoticed by Alistair, who was too busy performing for his rapidly expanding audience, both in the lobby and online. "Sir, please move to the seating area and wait for the authorities," Thomas, the head security guard, instructed, gesturing towards the plush leather chairs near the large, arched windows. "Actually," Julian said quietly, his gaze lingering on the burned remains of his check, "I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding here." Alistair threw his head back and laughed loudly, ensuring his booming voice reached every corner of the now packed lobby. "The only misunderstanding," he declared, wiping a tear of theatrical mirth from his eye, "is you thinking that a pathetic fake check would work in my establishment." The digital clock now read 2:55 p.m. Alistair turned to address his captive audience of customers and online viewers, his voice filled with a self-important gravitas. "This, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when we stay vigilant and protect our community. Burn the fraud, protect the innocent, and never let criminals think they can outsmart honest bankers." The crowd murmured strong approval, a wave of agreement washing over the lobby. Multiple phones continued recording both the ash pile and Julian's remarkably composed reaction. Julian allowed the security guards to guide him towards the seating area, but something subtle shifted in his expression. He looked down at the burned, scattered remains of his check, then directly at Alistair, a faint, almost imperceptible curve playing on his lips, as if genuinely amused by something only he understood. He checked his expensive Swiss timepiece, a detail that Alistair and his captivated audience were still too caught up in the drama to notice among all the excitement. Exactly 5 minutes until his board meeting began. The crowd, restless with anticipation, grew hungrier for the next act. "Evelyn, get over here immediately," Alistair commanded, his voice echoing with theatrical authority across the marble lobby. "You need to witness how real fraud prevention works in the field." Assistant manager Evelyn Reed approached reluctantly, her designer heels clicking rhythmically against the pristine floor where Julian's burned check fragments still lay scattered like black confetti across the expensive marble. She stared down at the ash pile, then shifted her gaze to Julian's unnaturally calm face, a deep disquiet settling in her professional instincts. "Take detailed notes for your training file," Alistair continued pompously, pointing dramatically at the charred remains. "This is absolutely textbook criminal behavior. Fake check, stolen wallet, probably counterfeit identification documents next. I burned the primary evidence before he could destroy it himself or pass it to an accomplice." The live stream audience had exploded exponentially to over 1,200 viewers, the numbers climbing by the second. Comments streamed faster than human eyes could process. "This is absolutely wild." "Manager is a complete legend." "Someone call the federal authorities immediately." "This is better than any reality show." The blonde woman filming adjusted her angle expertly to capture both Julian's remarkably composed face and the dramatic ash pile simultaneously. A second security guard, Officer Miller, arrived at the scene, breathing heavily from his rushed response across the massive building. "What's the exact situation here, Tom?" he asked his colleague. "Major fraud attempt in progress." Thomas, the head guard, responded authoritatively, nodding towards Julian. "The manager successfully burned the counterfeit check. Suspects also carrying multiple stolen credit cards." Alistair's chest swelled visibly with pride and self-satisfaction. "That's absolutely correct, officer. See those ashes scattered across my floor? That was a $2.3 million fraudulent check. Can you even begin to believe the sheer audacity?" Three teenagers near the overpriced coffee station abandoned their $8 lattes entirely to film the unfolding spectacle with their phones. One immediately uploaded to a video-sharing platform with multiple fire emojis. "Bank manager literally burned scammer's check in real time. Savage manager, Grand Sterling Bank instant justice viral." Julian sat calmly in the luxurious leather chair as instructed, but his posture remained strangely relaxed and confident rather than defeated. His expensive Swiss watch caught the overhead fluorescent light as he checked the time with practiced ease. 2:57 p.m., exactly 3 minutes remaining. "You seem remarkably calm for someone who just got caught red-handed," Alistair observed with predatory satisfaction, circling Julian slowly like a shark sensing blood in the water. Most criminals panic completely when their elaborate scam falls apart spectacularly. Julian's deep voice was quiet, eerily calm, as his eyes followed Alistair's theatrical movements. "Do they really?" "Oh, look, everyone. He actually speaks," Alistair announced triumphantly to his growing audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, the sophisticated criminal has something intelligent to say. Please, by all means, enlighten us all with your creative excuses and fabricated stories." The elderly Chanel customer moved closer, her equally well-dressed companion following obediently behind. "I've never witnessed anything quite like this in 40 years of banking," she whispered loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear clearly. "Burning the fraudulent evidence right there on the floor. Absolutely brilliant strategy." A balding businessman in an expensive three-piece suit joined the growing circle of spectators. "You should seriously run for CEO, Alistair. This entire city desperately needs more people with your kind of backbone and decisive action." Alistair preened visibly under the mounting attention and praise, adjusting his silk tie again and smoothing his perfectly styled hair. "Just performing my civic duty to protect honest, hard-working citizens. Can't allow these criminal elements to think they can waltz into respectable financial establishments." Julian's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket again. He glanced discreetly at the illuminated screen. The message read, "Urgent. Emergency board meeting starting now. Where are you?" "Turn that device off immediately," Alistair snapped with growing irritation, his self-importance briefly punctured by the persistent buzzing. "Your partner in crime can wait indefinitely for your coordination call." "Actually," Julian said calmly, rising slowly from his seated position, his gaze unwavering, "I really do need to take this particular call. It's quite important." Both security guards, Thomas and Miller, stepped forward immediately, hands instinctively moving toward their equipment. "Sit back down right now, sir," Thomas ordered firmly, his voice laced with authority. "You're not going anywhere until police officers arrive to process you." The live stream viewer count hit 1,500 and continued climbing rapidly. The blonde woman, filming, provided enthusiastic live commentary. "Oh my God, everyone! He's actually trying to leave. The scammer's attempting to escape before the cops arrive." Alistair threw his head back and laughed harshly, gesturing dramatically at the burned remains scattered across his floor. "Look carefully at that pathetic pile of ashes on my pristine marble floor. That pile of carbon was your big meal ticket, wasn't it? Your elaborate payday scheme. Now it's absolutely nothing but carbon particles and public humiliation. Evelyn Reed shifted uncomfortably behind the customer service counter, her professional instincts screaming that something didn't add up correctly. Julian's demeanor, his expensive yet understated clothing, the way he carried himself, it all contradicted Alistair's narrative. Alistair, maybe we should take a moment to verify certain details before. Verify exactly what? Alistair cut her off dismissively, his voice sharp with impatience. The counterfeit check is completely destroyed. The stolen wallet is properly secured. Case definitively closed. Just then, a new arrival entered the bank's grand entrance, an impeccably dressed woman in an expensive business suit carrying a sleek leather briefcase. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, immediately registered the unusual crowd and the distinct smell of burned paper lingering in the air. "Excuse me, what exactly happened here?" she asked a nearby customer with genuine concern. The manager caught a professional scammer completely red-handed. The businessman explained excitedly, clearly relishing his role as narrator. "Burned his obviously fake check right in front of everyone. The whole thing's going viral across social media platforms." The woman's eyes widened dramatically as she spotted Julian sitting calmly in the chair, completely surrounded by security personnel and an increasingly hostile crowd. She immediately reached for her own expensive phone. Alistair noticed her filming and addressed her directly with theatrical flair. "Ma'am, you're witnessing genuine justice in action today. This individual brazenly attempted to defraud our respected institution with an obviously counterfeit financial instrument. $2.3 million, the Chanel customer added helpfully, her voice dripping with indignation. "Can you possibly imagine such nerve? The absolute audacity of these people." A group of college students entered, immediately drawn to the commotion and the lingering scent of charred paper. They started filming with multiple devices, uploading content to various social media platforms simultaneously. Julian checked his watch again with deliberate precision. 2:58 p.m. His facial expression shifted almost imperceptibly, like someone making a critical decision that would change everything. The live stream comments became increasingly hostile and racially charged. "Lock his criminal ass up. Typical scammer behavior. Should have called the authorities immediately. At least the fake check got torched. Justice served live on television. This is what we need more of." Alistair basked completely in the viral attention, his voice growing progressively louder and more theatrical with each passing moment. This is exactly what happens when hard-working, honest citizens finally stand up decisively to fraud and criminal behavior. We don't negotiate with criminals. We don't enable their destructive behavior. We destroy their tools and expose their elaborate lies for everyone to witness. The crowd murmured strong approval, creating an echo chamber of validation. Multiple phones continued recording from various angles, capturing Julian's remarkable composure against the dramatic backdrop of burned paper fragments and mounting public accusations. Evelyn, the assistant manager, noticed something increasingly odd. Julian's clothes might appear casual at first glance, but his shoes were clearly expensive Italian leather, subtle yet undeniably luxurious. His watch, too, appeared to be genuine Swiss craftsmanship, a masterpiece of engineering, and the confident, almost regal way he carried himself simply didn't match Alistair's criminal narrative at all. "Alistair," she whispered urgently, tugging at his sleeve, her voice tight with apprehension. "Something doesn't seem right about this entire situation." "Evelyn, not now," Alistair waved her off dismissively, too intoxicated by his moment of viral fame and public adoration to listen to rational concerns. Julian's phone buzzed one final time with obvious urgency. He looked carefully at the screen, then at Alistair's smug face, then down at the scattered ashes of what was once his check. For the first time since entering the bank, Julian Vance allowed himself to smile genuinely. The clock on the wall now read 2:59 p.m. "Mr. Finch," Julian said clearly, his voice cutting effortlessly through the noise of the excited crowd, carrying an unexpected weight of authority. "I believe it's time we had a proper, professional conversation." Alistair laughed dismissively, spreading his arms wide to address his captivated audience. "Oh, now he wants to negotiate. Sorry, friend, but talking time ended permanently when you attempted to pass that obviously counterfeit check in my establishment." Julian reached slowly and deliberately into his jacket pocket. Both security guards tensed immediately, hands moving instinctively toward their protective equipment. "Move very carefully now," Thomas warned seriously, his gaze locked on Julian's hand. Julian's smile widened slightly with genuine amusement. The expensive first-class boarding pass was visible for just a moment, a flash of white against his dark jacket, before his hand moved past it purposefully to retrieve something else entirely. Exactly 1 minute until his emergency board meeting began. 1 minute until Alistair Finch's comfortable world, built on assumptions and prejudice, changed forever. The clock ticked past 3 p.m. The world shifted. Julian Vance pulled out a simple yet elegantly embossed white business card and placed it gently on the polished marble counter directly beside the scattered ashes of his burned check. The card landed with barely a whisper, a stark contrast to the cacophony that had preceded it, but the impact would be seismic. Thomas, the head security guard, leaned forward, his brow furrowed with curiosity, to read the name. His face went completely white within seconds, the color draining from his cheeks as if a switch had been flipped. He looked from the card to Julian, then back to the card, a dawning horror in his eyes. Julian Vance, Chairman and CEO, Vance Capital Group. The blonde live stream woman, her hands visibly shaking with a mixture of excitement and disbelief, zoomed in frantically with her phone camera. Comments exploded across the screen as thousands of viewers simultaneously read the card. "Wait, what? Is this actually real? CEO plot twist incoming. This can't be happening." Alistair laughed dismissively, still desperately performing for his audience despite a rapidly growing unease that gnawed at his gut. "Oh, please. Anyone can print fake business cards at a print shop for $5. What's next in your bag of tricks? A fake passport? Counterfeit driver's license to match your stolen credit cards?" Julian reached into his jacket pocket again, this time producing a sleek, expensive tablet. With practiced ease and obvious familiarity, he opened the grand Sterling Bank and Trust mobile application and navigated confidently to a section most customers never see or even know exists: the board member portal. His fingers moved across the touchscreen with the practiced confidence of someone who uses this system daily, intimately familiar with its every nuance. The login page appeared in crisp, corporate blue, stern, and unyielding. Corporate board access. Authorized personnel only. Restricted access. Julian entered his credentials without hesitation, muscle memory guiding his movements. The screen refreshed smoothly, revealing his detailed profile in crisp, undeniable corporate formatting. Julian Vance, principal shareholder, 73% ownership stake, Vance Capital Group Holdings. Position, chairman of the board of directors. Board member since January 2018. Next scheduled meeting: Tuesday, 3:00 p.m. Emergency session, customer service review. Security clearance, level 10, full executive access. Thomas's radio, which had been clutched firmly in his hand, slipped from his suddenly nerveless grip, clattering loudly against the marble floor directly next to the burned check fragments. The sound echoed through the now silent lobby like a gunshot, stark and piercing. Evelyn Reed gasped audibly, her perfectly manicured hand flying to cover her mouth in shock. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, locked onto Alistair's paling face. "Oh my God, Alistair, do you see what that says? Do you understand what this means?" That's obviously sophisticated fake software, Alistair interrupted desperately, but his voice had lost all its confident edge and theatrical flair. Sweat beads were forming on his forehead despite the bank's efficient air conditioning. Anyone with basic computer skills can create fake screens on a tablet. This is just another elaborate layer of his sophisticated con game. Julian turned the tablet screen towards the growing crowd with deliberate slowness, ensuring everyone could see clearly. The live stream camera captured every pixel in crystal clear, high definition, broadcasting the undeniable truth to the world. The blonde woman filming provided breathless, real-time commentary. Guys, this screen says he owns 73% of the entire bank. Is this actually real? Someone please tell me this is really happening. The viewer count exploded exponentially, rocketing past 2,000 as the video was shared frantically across multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Comments streamed like a digital wildfire, moving too fast for human comprehension. Holy cow! Plus, he actually owns the bank. Manager is so completely fired. This is the best plot twist in internet history. Alistair is absolutely dead. Someone screen record this now. A well-dressed woman near the investment desk pulled out her phone and started a second live stream to her own followers. A college student began uploading clips to a video-sharing platform with captions like "Bank owner gets disrespected" and "Plot twist of the century." Julian's voice cut through the mounting chaos with supernatural calm and authority, every word weighted with undeniable truth. Mr. Finch, would you like to know exactly what that check you burned so dramatically for your audience actually contained? Alistair's face began showing the first visible cracks of genuine uncertainty, but his immense ego and the public humiliation he'd inflicted forced him to double down desperately. I don't care what elaborate lies you've printed on fake documents or programmed into stolen tablets. That check was obviously counterfeit, and I destroyed it properly to protect my honest customers from... It was my quarterly dividend payment, Julian stated with matter-of-fact precision, his voice a quiet hammer blow. From this bank to me, as the majority shareholder and owner. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening, a vacuum in the bustling lobby. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to pause, holding its breath. Julian swiped expertly to another screen on his tablet, revealing detailed financial records with official bank letterhead and security watermarks. Vance Capital Group quarterly dividend Q4 2024, $2,347,000. Authorized by Board Resolution 847B. Approved by Corporate Treasury. Issued Tuesday, December 15th. He looked down thoughtfully at the burned fragments scattered across the expensive marble floor, then back at Alistair with an expression of almost scholarly curiosity. You just burned $2,347,000 of my personal money, Mr. Finch, on camera in front of multiple witnesses, with thousands watching online. Alistair's face had progressed rapidly from confused to pale to an alarming shade of green. The Italian leather wallet containing Julian's identification and credit cards, still clutched in Alistair's jacket pocket, suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. His mouth opened and closed repeatedly like a fish out of water without producing a single sound. That can't possibly be, Alistair finally stammered, his theatrical confidence evaporating like smoke in the wind. Julian opened yet another application on his tablet with practiced familiarity, the bank's internal personnel directory. He navigated through the system with the obvious ease of someone who's used these tools countless times before, someone with unlimited access. Alistair Finch, Julian read aloud from the detailed employee screen, his voice resonating with an almost chilling clarity. Branch manager, downtown Viridia City location. Employee ID 4847. Annual salary $127,000. Hired March 15, 2018. Performance rating: satisfactory. Direct supervisor: Regional Director Anya Sharma. Emergency contact: Eleanor Finch, spouse. He looked up from the tablet directly into Alistair's increasingly panicked eyes. You've been working for me for exactly 6 years and 8 months, Alistair. The elderly Chanel customer, who had been so vocally supportive and encouraging just minutes before, began backing away slowly towards the exit, her face a mask of dawning horror. The businessman who had enthusiastically suggested Alistair run for CEO stared in growing disbelief, his jaw slack, reflecting the sudden horrifying realization of what he'd witnessed. 3 teenagers who had been filming excitedly now stood frozen, their phones still recording, but their expressions had shifted from entertainment to profound shock. One whispered to her friend, "Did we just watch someone burn their boss's money?" The live stream audience had exploded past 3,500 viewers, with the number climbing every second. The comments section had become completely unreadable due to the sheer speed of responses. Fire emojis, shocked face emojis, and endless variations of "Oh my God" and "This is insane" filled the screen continuously. Evelyn Reed found her voice first, speaking in a rush, her words tumbling out. "Mr. Vance, I am so incredibly, deeply sorry about this entire situation. We had absolutely no idea who you were, and this should never have happened." "Of course you didn't know," Julian responded with gentle understanding, his gaze softening slightly. "How could you possibly know? I dress casually when I visit branches. I don't announce my position or wave my credentials around. I come in like any other customer because I genuinely believe every single customer deserves respect, regardless of their appearance, clothing, or account balance." He stood slowly, tablet still in hand, and surveyed the crowd of customers who had been so eager to watch his public humiliation just minutes before. Many were now studying their shoes intently, or suddenly finding their phones extremely interesting, desperately trying to appear inconspicuous. "But here's what troubles me most deeply," Julian continued, his voice remaining unnaturally calm despite the enormous magnitude of what had just happened. "This incident wasn't really about a check amount or banking procedures or security protocols. This was fundamentally about assumptions, about immediate judgment, about who you thought deserved basic human respect and who didn't." Alistair seemed to physically shrink before everyone's eyes, his expensive suit suddenly looking several sizes too large for his diminishing frame. "Sir, if I had known who you were," Alistair began desperately, his voice a pathetic croak. "That's exactly the problem," Julian interrupted quietly but firmly. "If you had known who I was, what about who I am as a human being? What about treating every customer with dignity regardless of who they might be or what they might own?" The burned check ashes, still scattered across the marble floor, seemed to mock Alistair. A grim reminder, a $2.3 million mistake that would haunt him forever. Julian checked his expensive watch one final time. 3:02 p.m. "I'm now 2 minutes late for my emergency board meeting, which was originally called specifically to discuss customer service standards at this branch location." He looked directly at Alistair with an expression that managed to be simultaneously disappointed and decisively final. "I wonder what we'll be discussing now." 3:03 p.m. The reckoning began. Julian Vance opened a new application on his tablet with the deliberate precision of someone accessing tools he knew intimately, a conductor about to begin a symphony. The corporate financial dashboard loaded instantly, displaying real-time data that made Alistair's remaining color drain completely from his face like water from a broken dam. "Let me share some concrete numbers with you, Alistair," Julian said, his voice maintaining that unsettling calm that somehow made his words more terrifying than any shout. Grand Sterling Bank and Trust generated exactly $847 million in total revenue last year. My investment group, Vance Capital, contributed $623 million of that through our majority stake and associated business relationships. The live stream audience, now approaching 4,000 viewers and climbing steadily, watched in stunned silence as Julian swiped methodically through detailed financial reports with corporate logos and official watermarks. Comments flooded the screen faster than moderators could process. "He's got the actual numbers. This is better than any movie I've ever seen. Alistair's getting absolutely destroyed with data. CEO using spreadsheets as weapons." Evelyn Reed stood completely frozen behind the customer service counter, realizing she was witnessing corporate history unfold in real time before her eyes. The burned check fragments scattered at her feet represented more than just destroyed paper. They were physical evidence of a catastrophic mistake that would reshape everything about how this bank operated. "This specific downtown branch," Julian continued calmly, consulting his tablet with the ease of someone who reviews these numbers regularly, processes approximately $45 million in monthly transactions. That's $540 million annually flowing through this location. Your personal annual salary, Alistair, comes to exactly $127,000. Money that ultimately derives from the profits generated by my substantial investment in this institution." Alistair's mouth worked soundlessly, opening and closing like a fish, desperately gasping for air. The Italian leather wallet in his jacket pocket, Julian's wallet that he had so brazenly stolen in front of witnesses, felt heavier and more incriminating with each passing second. Julian swiped expertly to another screen, revealing comprehensive corporate governance documents with official legal letterhead. "I want everyone in this room and watching online to understand the precise legal framework we are operating under here. Section 4.2 of our Employee Handbook explicitly states that discrimination by bank personnel violates both federal law and corporate policy." He read directly from the tablet in a clear, authoritative voice, his words cutting through the lingering tension. "Any employee found guilty of discriminatory behavior toward customers based on race, gender, appearance, or perceived economic status faces immediate disciplinary action up to and including termination with cause and forfeiture of benefits." The elderly Chanel customer, who had enthusiastically applauded Alistair's discriminatory actions just minutes earlier, began edging nervously toward the main exit, her face pale and drawn. Other customers followed her lead like a retreating army, suddenly remembering urgent appointments elsewhere or pressing business that required their immediate attention. Clause 7.8 grants board members, specifically me as chairman, the unilateral authority to suspend personnel immediately pending full investigation and disciplinary proceedings. Julian's finger traced the specific text on his screen, highlighting its undeniable power. Article 12 requires that all recorded incidents of discrimination become permanent, irrevocable parts of employee records, reportable to state and federal banking authorities, and discoverable in background checks. Alistair finally found his voice, though it emerged as a pathetic croak, devoid of its former arrogance. "Mr. Vance, please. I had no idea who you were. I never meant—" "But here's the most legally significant part, Alistair," Julian interrupted with gentle but devastating precision. "The willful destruction of financial instruments, specifically burning a legitimate bank check in front of witnesses, constitutes a federal crime under Section 1441 of the U.S. Criminal Code, mail fraud and destruction of financial documents. The penalties include fines up to $1 million and imprisonment up to 20 years. The live stream viewer count exploded past 5,000 as people shared the video frantically across every available social platform. Bank Burns' check was trending nationwide alongside "Karma's Real," "Justice Served," and "Vance v. Finch." News outlets were beginning to pick up the story in real time. the viral moment transforming into national news. Julian stood slowly from his chair, tablet firmly in hand, and walked deliberately toward Alistair with measured steps. Each footfall echoed against the marble lobby like a countdown to final judgment. The distance between them closed with inexorable certainty. "So let me present your available options with complete clarity, Mr. Finch." Julian's voice carried the unmistakable weight of absolute corporate authority, calm yet chilling. Option 1. You immediately issue a comprehensive public apology to every person in this room and to the thousands watching online via live stream. You publicly acknowledge your discriminatory behavior, submit willingly to mandatory sensitivity training, accept a formal written reprimand in your permanent file, and continue your employment under strict probationary status. Alistair nodded frantically, visible relief flooding his pale features like sunrise after a nightmare. He seemed on the verge of collapsing. "However," Julian continued with devastating calm, and Alistair's face immediately fell again, his fleeting hope crushed. "Given the severity of your actions and the serious federal implications, Option 1 also requires you to accept immediate demotion from branch manager to assistant manager, with a corresponding 40% salary reduction. You will personally reimburse the bank $50,000 for the cost of replacing the destroyed check and processing this incident, and you will perform 200 hours of unpaid community service at financial literacy centers in underserved communities." The crowd murmured among themselves as they processed the harsh but undeniably fair terms. Evelyn Reed discreetly pulled out her phone, apparently taking detailed notes or recording everything for official documentation purposes. Option 2, Julian's voice hardened almost imperceptibly, like steel wrapped in silk, is immediate termination for cause, complete forfeiture of all pension benefits under the discrimination and property destruction clauses, and formal referral to federal authorities for criminal prosecution. He paused, letting the words sink in. "Given that your discriminatory actions were recorded by multiple witnesses and broadcast live to thousands of viewers, the evidence against you is overwhelming and irrefutable." Alistair's knees visibly shook beneath his expensive trousers. The stolen wallet, still burning like a brand against his chest in his pocket, felt like a lead weight. "Furthermore," Julian continued, relentlessly consulting another screen on his tablet, "termination for cause would include immediate notification to the National Banking Association's Disciplinary Board, effectively ending your career in financial services permanently. The viral nature of this incident ensures that your name will be associated with this discriminatory behavior indefinitely, following you to any future employer." Julian opened another application on his tablet, the bank's internal human resources communication system. "I can send termination papers to HR right now, Alistair. Your access to all computer systems would be revoked within 5 minutes. Security would escort you from the building immediately, and your personal items would be boxed and mailed to your home address within 48 hours. The live stream audience watched in absolute fascination as Julian demonstrated the swift, decisive power of actual corporate consequences. Comments streamed continuously. "This is what real accountability looks like. Give him option 2. Make him pay for what he did. Justice in real time. But there's a third consideration that weighs heavily on my mind," Julian added thoughtfully, looking down at the scattered ashes of his destroyed check. "The $2,347,000 you burned represents not just my personal money, but funds that could have funded financial literacy programs, small business loans for minority entrepreneurs, educational scholarships for disadvantaged students, and community development projects. Your prejudice didn't just hurt me personally, it damaged the entire community this bank exists to serve." Alistair's face crumpled visibly, the full weight of his actions finally penetrating his consciousness. He looked utterly broken. "Sir, please. I have a family to support, a mortgage payment, children in college. I can't lose everything over one terrible mistake." "One mistake?" Julian's voice sharpened noticeably for the first time, cutting through the air like a blade. "Alistair, you didn't accidentally burn my check. You didn't mistakenly treat me with disrespect. You made deliberate, calculated choices based on the color of my skin and your prejudiced assumptions about my worth as a human being." He gestured directly toward the live stream camera, where thousands continued watching this unprecedented confrontation. "And you performed your discrimination proudly, theatrically, for a live audience. You wanted witnesses to your bigotry. You actively sought validation for your prejudice. Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted." The security guard stood motionless and confused, uncertain whether they should still be treating Julian as a suspect or Alistair as the primary problem. The burned check fragments, scattered between them, told the complete story of this dramatic power reversal. "I need your final decision right now, Alistair," Julian stated with firm finality. "Public apology, community service, demotion, financial reimbursement, and probation, or immediate termination, criminal referral, and complete career destruction. You have exactly 60 seconds to choose your future." Julian raised his tablet meaningfully, his finger hovering directly over what appeared to be official termination paperwork. The wall clock read 3:07 p.m. with mechanical precision. "Choose very wisely," Julian advised quietly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty, "because unlike the careless assumptions you made about me, this decision will define exactly who you actually are as a person." Alistair stared down at the ashes of the check he had burned so proudly, finally understanding that his moment of prejudiced pride and public performance had cost him everything unless he swallowed that pride completely and begged for mercy. The 60-second countdown began with devastating precision. 3:08 p.m., the choice and its consequences. Alistair's legs buckled slightly as the 60-second countdown reached 30. The weight of thousands watching online, the burned check ashes at his feet, and Julian's unwavering stare combined into a crushing realization of his complete vulnerability. "I choose option 1, Alistair whispered hoarsely, his voice barely audible above the hum of the air conditioning. A broken man. "I apologize completely to everyone." Julian lowered his tablet but didn't put it away. "Louder, Alistair. The people filming need to hear you clearly. And face the cameras, not me." Alistair turned toward the live stream, his face pale and drawn, a mask of profound humiliation. The blonde woman filming adjusted her angle to capture his apology in high definition. Over 6,000 people now watched in real time. "I, Alistair Finch," he began, his voice cracking with emotion, "sincerely apologize to Mr. Julian Vance for my discriminatory behavior. I made prejudiced assumptions based on his appearance. I destroyed his personal property. I treated him with disrespect and prejudice that has no place in banking or society." The live stream comments exploded. "Too little, too late. At least he's admitting it. This is painful to watch. Good. Make him suffer. Continue," Julian instructed quietly. Alistair's hands shook visibly. "I apologize to every customer who witnessed my behavior and to everyone watching online. My actions were wrong, illegal, and inexcusable. I accept full responsibility and will work to become a better person." Evelyn Reed began typing rapidly on her computer, documenting everything for corporate records. The remaining customers watched in fascination as a man's career, and his very persona, transformed before their eyes. Julian opened his tablet again, navigating to what appeared to be an employee disciplinary form. "Evelyn, please prepare Alistair's new employment contract reflecting his demotion to assistant manager and salary reduction. HR will need documentation within the hour." "Yes, Mr. Vance?" Evelyn responded immediately, her professional demeanor now fully aligned with Julian's undeniable authority. Julian swiped to another screen showing the bank's policy manual. Effective immediately, this branch will implement new customer service protocols. Evelyn, I want you to take detailed notes for corporate distribution. The live stream audience watched in awe as Julian began reshaping the bank's operations in real time. Comments shifted from mockery to genuine interest. He's actually making changes. This is how you fix systemic problems. Smart CEO moves. First, the Dignity First protocol, Julian announced, consulting his tablet. Every customer receives identical service regardless of appearance, clothing, or perceived economic status. Staff members must greet customers within 30 seconds and maintain professional courtesy throughout all interactions. Alistair stood motionless, still processing his dramatic fall from manager to assistant manager. The wallet in his pocket, Julian's wallet, remained a burning reminder of his compounding mistakes. Second, we're implementing the Respect Monitor system, Julian continued, his voice resonating with purpose. All customer interactions will be recorded and analyzed monthly by an independent third-party civil rights organization. Any patterns of bias or discrimination will trigger immediate investigation and corrective action. Evelyn typed furiously, capturing every detail. Should I schedule the technology installation, Mr. Vance? Yes, and make it priority 1. I want cameras operational within 48 hours. Julian swiped to another screen. Third, mandatory quarterly training for all staff. Unconscious bias recognition, cultural sensitivity, and professional customer service standards. The elderly Chanel customer who had started to leave paused near the door to listen, a strange, thoughtful expression on her face. Her earlier enthusiasm for Alistair's discrimination had transformed into an uncomfortable silence. These workshops will include guest speakers from affected communities, Julian continued. Staff performance reviews will now include specific metrics for equitable customer treatment. Raises and promotions will depend partially on these scores. Julian walked slowly toward the scattered ashes of his burned check, his expensive shoes crunching slightly on the fragments. Fourth, we're establishing anonymous customer feedback systems, physical kiosks in every branch, plus a dedicated hotline with direct access to my office. Alistair watched helplessly as his former authority crumbled into systematic accountability. The live stream viewer count approached 7,000 as news outlets began picking up the story, reporting on the unprecedented events unfolding live. Fifth, Julian's voice carried increasing conviction, a clear vision for the future. Monthly community advisory meetings. Representatives from local organizations will meet with branch management to discuss service quality and address concerns before they escalate. He knelt down and carefully gathered some of the burned check fragments into his hand, cradling them like precious artifacts. Evelyn, I want these ashes preserved as evidence for the incident report. Also, we'll be creating a memorial display in the lobby. A memorial, sir? Evelyn asked, confused, her brow furrowed. Julian stood, ashes in his palm like dark snow. A framed reminder titled, The Cost of Assumptions. These ashes will serve as a permanent reminder that prejudice destroys more than just paper. It destroys trust, community, and human dignity. The live stream comments became increasingly supportive. Turn trash into treasure. Teaching moment for everyone. This guy is brilliant. Real leadership. Alistair finally found the courage to speak, his voice still shaky, but regaining a sliver of composure. Mr. Vance, I still have your wallet. I'm sorry I took it. Julian extended his free hand. Thank you for returning it, Alistair. Alistair retrieved the leather wallet from his jacket and placed it carefully in Julian's hand. The symbolic transfer of power was complete, marking his transformation from aggressor to subordinate. "Now about your community service," Julian continued, consulting his tablet again, his gaze piercing. "You'll be working at the Southside Financial Literacy Center every Saturday for the next 2 years. You'll help families understand banking, credit, and financial planning." "Yes, sir," Alistair responded meekly, his head bowed. "Specifically, you'll be working with families who look exactly like me," Julian added with quiet emphasis. "Families who have experienced discrimination in financial services. You'll learn their stories, understand their struggles, and hopefully develop the empathy you clearly lack." The weight of this assignment settled over Alistair like a heavy blanket. 2 years of facing the very people he had prejudiced against, learning their humanity, confronting his biases weekly. "Your first training session is this Saturday at 9 a.m., Julian stated firmly. "Elena Petrova, the center director, is expecting you. She's a 67-year-old grandmother who's been fighting financial discrimination for 40 years. I suggest you listen carefully to everything she teaches you." Evelyn finished typing and looked up. "Mr. Vance, should I notify corporate headquarters about these policy changes?" "Already done," Julian replied, showing his tablet screen. "I sent the implementation order 20 minutes ago. Every Grand Sterling branch will adopt these standards within 90 days. The live stream audience realized they'd witnessed more than just individual justice. They'd seen systemic change born from one man's prejudice and another man's profound response. Comments reflected this understanding. This is how you fix racism. From burned check to burned bias. Policy change in real time. Julian looked around the lobby, taking in the faces of customers, staff, and security who had witnessed this transformation. "Ladies and gentlemen, what happened here today wasn't just about me or Alistair. It was about the assumptions we make, the respect we deny, and the changes we can create when we choose justice over revenge." He held up the ashes of his burned check, letting them sift through his fingers. "These ashes represent 2.3 million, but more importantly, they represent the cost of prejudice. Tomorrow, they'll represent the foundation of something better." The clock on the wall read 3:15 p.m. In just 12 minutes, Julian had transformed public humiliation into profound education, discrimination into sweeping policy reform, and personal pain into systemic healing. Alistair stood quietly, processing the magnitude of his fall and the unexpected mercy of his punishment. His career lay in ashes like the check he burned. But unlike the check, his career might still be salvageable through genuine change. "Any questions about your new responsibilities, Alistair?" Julian asked. Alistair shook his head slowly, unable to meet Julian's gaze. "No, sir. Thank you for giving me a second chance." Julian nodded once, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement, then turned toward the exit. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 2 years when you've learned to see people as human beings instead of assumptions." 6 months later, the transformation was evident. The memorial display sat prominently in the Grand Sterling Bank and Trust lobby, drawing visitors from across the country. Behind protective glass, the preserved ashes of Julian Vance's burned check rested on a velvet cushion, accompanied by a brass plaque reading, "The Cost of Assumptions, in Memory of Prejudice Destroyed by Dignity." Alistair Finch arrived early for his Saturday morning shift at the Southside Financial Literacy Center, as he had every week for 26 consecutive weeks. The man who had once burned a check in arrogant discrimination now carried educational materials for families he previously viewed with suspicion, his posture humble, his eyes alert. "Morning, Elena." Alistair greeted Elena Petrova, the center director, warmly, his voice carrying none of its former condescension. "Good morning, Marcus," the 67-year-old grandmother responded with a knowing smile. "The Hernandez family is waiting for you in room 3. Their small business loan was denied yesterday. They need help understanding why." Alistair nodded and walked toward the conference room. passing walls covered with thank you letters from families he'd helped navigate the complex banking system. His transformation hadn't happened overnight. It required confronting his biases one conversation, one family, one grateful glance at a time. The ripple effect spread far beyond the bank's marble walls. The viral video of Julian Vance's response to discrimination had reached 15 million views across all platforms. Bankburn's check became more than a hashtag. It evolved into a powerful movement, examining assumptions and privilege in everyday interactions. Dr. Sarah Lane, a distinguished sociology professor at Northwestern University, incorporated the incident into her curriculum on systemic racism. This case study, she explained to her graduate students, demonstrates how individual prejudice becomes institutional discrimination and how decisive leadership can create immediate systemic change. The footage had been translated into 12 languages and was now being used in corporate training programs worldwide. Companies across industries adopted variations of Julian's Dignity First protocol, recognizing that respect wasn't merely an option. It was essential for business success and social cohesion. The corporate revolution within Grand Sterling Bank and Trust was profound. Vance Capital Group's approach to discrimination had become the gold standard for financial institutions. The independent monitoring system established by Julian identified and addressed 47 incidents of bias across their network in the first quarter alone, preventing escalation through early intervention. We've seen a 34% increase in minority customer satisfaction, reported Regional Director Anya Sharma, the supervisor who now oversaw sensitivity training implementation across all branches. More importantly, we've seen a cultural shift. Employees actively watch for bias and correct it immediately, fostering a truly inclusive environment. The quarterly training programs evolved beyond mere compliance into genuine education. Guest speakers shared personal stories of discrimination, creating emotional connections that policy manuals alone could never achieve. Performance reviews now included customer feedback scores specifically related to respectful treatment, tying raises and promotions directly to ethical customer service. Grand Sterling Bank and Trust's stock price increased 12% in 6 months, driven partially by positive publicity, but primarily by an expanded customer base and significantly improved community relationships. Other banks, observing their success, began adopting similar policies, creating an industry-wide transformation. Alistair's journey was a testament to the possibility of change. The man who once stood triumphantly over burning ashes now sat humbly across from Sofia Hernandez, explaining loan requirements with patience and genuine empathy, a stark contrast to his former self. "The bank denied your application because of the debt-to-income ratio," Alistair explained gently, pointing to a section in the document. "But there are steps we can take to improve your position. Let's create a plan." Sophia's eyes filled with gratitude, a genuine warmth replacing her initial apprehension. "You're the first bank person who actually listened to our situation instead of just saying no." Alistair felt the familiar, bittersweet weight of his past behavior. Every grateful family reminded him of the people he had dismissed, the dreams he had crushed through his prejudiced assumptions. His 200 hours of community service became 400, then 600. The formal requirement ended, but the learning continued, self-imposed and profound. "I was wrong about many things," Alistair admitted during his monthly check-in with Julian Vance, his voice reflective. "I thought success meant excluding people. I learned it means including them." Julian nodded thoughtfully. "That's wisdom that can't be taught in training manuals, Alistair. It has to be earned through genuine relationships." The memorial's message resonated deeply. Visitors to the Grand Sterling lobby often paused at the display, reading the accompanying explanation of events. Children asked parents about the ashes behind glass, their young minds grappling with the concept of prejudice. Adults shared stories of their own experiences with discrimination, finding solidarity and hope. The display included a QR code linking to the full video of the incident and a comprehensive resource page about unconscious bias. Educational materials explained how assumptions become actions, and actions become systems of exclusion. Those ashes represent more than money, Julian reflected during a recorded interview that accompanied the display. They represent every time someone's worth was judged by their appearance, every time potential was dismissed by prejudice, every opportunity destroyed by assumptions. The memorial had inspired similar displays in corporations, universities, and community centers nationwide. The phrase, "the cost of assumptions," appeared on everything from coffee mugs to conference room posters, serving as daily reminders to examine our biases. Systemic change across industries became a reality. The Vance standards, as they became known, spread far beyond banking. Retail stores, healthcare facilities, government offices, and educational institutions adopted similar protocols. The combination of real-time monitoring, regular training, and community accountability created measurable improvements in customer service across demographics. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that businesses implementing Vance-style protocols experienced average increases of 23% in minority customer satisfaction and 18% in overall customer retention. The business case for dignity became undeniable. Technology companies developed sophisticated bias detection software based on Julian's monitoring systems. Artificial intelligence now helps identify patterns of discriminatory behavior that human oversight might miss, ensuring fairness at scale. Julian Vance didn't consider himself a hero of the story. "I simply refuse to let prejudice stand unchallenged," he explained during university speaking engagements. "The real heroes are people like Alistair, who chose to grow instead of retreat." His quarterly dividend checks still arrived at the same downtown branch, but now they were processed with the respect every customer deserved. Julian often visited unannounced, observing interactions and ensuring standards remained high. The first-class boarding pass to Kyoto that Alistair never noticed led to a business expansion that created 200 jobs in underserved communities. Julian's calm, strategic response to discrimination created opportunities that his anger never could have achieved. The lesson of the burned check extends beyond corporate policies and training programs. It challenges every individual to examine their assumptions, question their biases, and choose dignity over discrimination. Your voice matters. Your story counts, Julian emphasizes in his speaking engagements. Every time you witness unfairness and choose to speak up, you create change. Every time you treat someone with dignity when others show disrespect, you build bridges. The movement continues through individual actions. Social media platforms fill with stories of people choosing inclusion over exclusion, understanding over assumption, growth over grudges. Fireproof worth becomes a rallying cry for protecting human dignity. Your role in this story is crucial. The burned check incident proves that change doesn't require violence, immense wealth, or political power. It requires the courage to stand for principles, the wisdom to choose education over retaliation, and the commitment to creating systems that protect everyone's dignity. Have you witnessed discrimination that seemed small, but felt enormous? Share your experience in the comments below. Every story shared helps others recognize these moments and respond with Julian's combination of strength and grace. Subscribe to our channel for more real-world examples of quiet strength overcoming loud prejudice. Hit the notification bell because transformation happens when we pay attention to each other's humanity. Share this video if you believe in the power of dignity over destruction, education over retaliation, and building systems that protect rather than destroy. Use fireproof Worth to share your own stories of overcoming discrimination through intelligence, persistence, and unwavering dignity. Remember, they can burn your check, but they cannot burn your worth. And when you own the power to create change, you get to decide how justice looks. The ashes in that memorial display aren't just remnants of prejudice. They're fertilizer for growth. From destruction comes creation. From humiliation comes education. From individual pain comes systemic healing. That's how you turn a burned check into a burned bridge to discrimination.